Number 9 is doing a task you know you shouldn't be doing or that you don't really agree with because you didn't say no. Now, this is probably going to be more in your personal life than in your work life, but it might be you've agreed to do something for a customer that is just ridiculous and stupid and you shouldn't have agreed. But that's a difficult one because going beyond for customers is part of the job, isn't it? But there might be something that is just going too far beyond even for a customer. I don't know. But that feeling of, oh, I don't know why I've agreed to this. Do you ever get that? Do you ever think I shouldn't have agreed to this? You know, why have I got my wife's brother visiting for the weekend? You know, I should never have agreed to that or whatever. And, you know, clearly the answer is to get better at saying no, if you can. And I want to just really say 2 things about saying no. One is the third of the personality drivers that I've been talking about, which I'm going to call please others. I don't have the please others driver actually, but my wife does. She's incredibly nice and she worries constantly about what people will think if she says no. If she says no to anything, oh, they'll think I'm a bad person. Or, and the answer is sometimes you have to look after yourself, don't you? And I think you can even say no to customers sometimes, can't you? You could just say, I'm afraid we just can't do that. It's probably better actually to negotiate and say we can do it, but it'll cost extra. But if there's not really a way to do that, there might be times when you just could say, no, we can't do that, I'm afraid. Because, you know, otherwise you'd end up making a loss, wouldn't you? If you did everything that every customer wanted, you perhaps would end up making a loss. So I think saying no is an option. I would actually say the only person you can't say no to is your boss. I think you're allowed to question things and you're allowed to say to your boss, are you sure that's a good idea? Because if we do it, there'll be this problem. But if they say, well, I've thought about that and I still want you to do it, then, you know, basically they, as you would say, they own your ass. That's the deal, isn't it? You get paid and you do what your boss tells you. I think you should question it if you think it's not sensible, but in the end, they decide. But everyone else in the world, you can say no to. And I think actually it's quite important you do. A very quick example of this, and then we're on to number 10 and we finished, is I was invited to a wedding in Scotland, which is the northern tip of England. It's it's like a 9-hour drive. And I don't know where your equivalent would be, like, you know, Alabama or somewhere like a long way to get to. And it was a cousin of my wife, so I don't even know. And I didn't really want to go. And I said to my wife, should we just not go? And she said, well, we ought to go. She's got the please others. We should go. They'll think we're bad people if we don't go. I don't care what they think of me. I just don't want to have to spend a whole weekend going to this wedding that's miles away. Anyway, I persuaded her in the end that we wouldn't go. So we sent the thing back saying we couldn't make the date and we didn't go. And we had a whole extra weekend, which was great. But my question is, did I do a bad thing not going to this wedding? And there's a thing called the utility theory of happiness, which I think explains it really well, which I'm just going to draw down here in this little corner. And basically, if I've made their wedding, well, if going to the wedding will make them a little bit happier, but it'll make me very unhappy, should I go? And the answer is no, because the overall system will be less happy if I go. Okay. Now, if I could go to the wedding and it would make them incredibly happy, and it would only make me a little bit unhappy, the hassle of going, then I should go. Okay. And this is what teamwork is, where you do the occasional thing that you don't really want to do. It's a small bit of hassle, but it makes a big difference to other people. I bought some trainers when I was in New York, and they took ages finding the right size in the stockroom. And I think their stockroom was totally chaotic round the back. And I think for the small hassle of putting the shoes back in the right place, you could save a huge amount for the next person who's looking for those shoes. You know, it would take you 10 seconds and it would save them 5 minutes. So teamwork is that sometimes you have to do things that are a little bit bad, but they make a big difference to other people. But the Scottish wedding was the other way round. The Scottish wedding was me having to do a huge bad thing, drive all the way to Scotland and back, just to make their wedding slightly better. And actually, do you know, I suspect they didn't even care whether I went. In fact, I think they actually might have been pleased that I didn't go, because then they could invite one of their friends instead of their miserable relative from down south, and it was their duty to invite. So, you know, they actually probably didn't care about me. And quite often, you know, we're not as important as to other people as we think we are. So the utility theory of happiness is really interesting. Whereas my wife would just never do a bad thing. No, they'll be unhappy, therefore we have to go. And that's not sensible. You've got to weigh up yours and theirs, haven't you? So overcome your please others driver by thinking to yourself, I've got a life as well, and I want to do what I want to do. I'm not. Imagine if everyone in the world takes 10% of your time. That's your life gone. And so sometimes you have to push back a bit and just say, no, I want to do this. It's my life and I'm doing it. So I think as you get older and you realize that time is short, you start to value it more, don't you? I'm just trying to look at who's really young here. See, somebody like Kay probably thinks she's going to live forever. You probably haven't realized yet you're going to die one day. So, but I've realized. Can I do something? Who is panicking a bit about the fact their life isn't long enough and they haven't got long enough left? Is anybody? Is it only me? Jean, really? You're too young to be worrying. And Zvi, yeah, you will reach an age where you think, actually, I haven't got that long. I want to make the most of this. I'm going to say no to this stuff I don't want to do.